Hey, Algebra 2, we're going to work on our guided practice for lesson 8.5b. In this lesson, we're going to begin writing equations of hyperbolas. So our last lesson, we were graphing our equations of hyperbolas. Now we're going to go the other direction and begin learning how to write the equations of these hyperbolas. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the information that we are given. We're given that the foci are at -3, 0, and 3, 0. The vertices are at -1, 0, and 1, 0. And I'm going to do a quick sketch just to see what's going on. It's going to help me with my next step to figure out how I'm going to write that equation. So I'm noticing that since I have my foci and vertices on the horizontal axis, that my hyperbola branches will open left and right. And that means that the x squared is going to come first when I begin to write my equation. Okay, if I have a horizontal transverse axis, my x squared comes first in my equation. It will be the positive fraction. All right, so let's get our numbers for that equation. So my vertices here at -1, 0, and 1, 0, and that means my a is 1. A squared then also would be 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. My c, given to me in my foci up here, c is 3. I'm going to square that 3 and get 9. So c squared is 9. Just be kind of careful. The problems do give you the focus values first and the vertices second. So it's kind of easy to get mixed up and then plug the numbers in backwards. So the vertices, our A numbers, are the second piece of information that will be given in these problems. All right, now I need to figure out my b squared because that's going to show up in my equation. So I use the relationship c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Plugging in 9 for c squared, plugging in 1 for a squared, I have 9 equals 1 plus b squared. Subtract 1 on both sides, and my 8 then is equal to b squared. B squared is 8. So now I'm ready to write my equation. Now I'm going to need to use the general form of my equation, x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared is 1. And remember, I decided that my x squared has to come first in this equation because I have a horizontal transverse axis. Okay, so what's my a squared? It's 1. What's my b squared? It's 8. So I'm plugging those numbers in for a squared and b squared, and I'm done. Now, this is a perfectly acceptable form for the equation, but we really don't need that one in the denominator, so another quick way to write this would be x squared minus y squared over 8 equals 1. All right, our last guided practice problem will be when we have a vertical transverse axis, when the branches of our hyperbola open up and down. And we're going to know that we have a transverse vertical axis right away, especially if we make that quick sketch. It'll be easy for us to see that. Here's our focus points, and here's our vertices, just a quick sketch showing where they would be falling approximately. So since the foci and the vertices are on the y-axis, we know we have a transverse vertical axis, and the branches of the hyperbola would open up and down in this case if we were interested in the graph. All right, so A is 6. Again, we're going to pull that off the vertices, which is the second piece of information we're given here. That makes a squared 36. C is 10. That comes from our focus points. And c squared then would be 100. Using the relationship c squared equals a squared plus b squared, we're going to find our b squared, plug in 100 for c squared, plug in 36 for a squared. That comes right from up here. And then we're going to solve that equation for b squared. Subtracting 36 on both sides gives us b squared is equal to 64. Okay, we're ready to write the equation. Now we have to remember that in this particular problem, the y squared has to come first because we have a vertical transverse axis. So putting our y squared first over our a squared in our hyperbolas, the a squared is always underneath the first fraction, and the b squared is always underneath or in the denominator, the second fraction. So our a squared was 36, our b squared was 64, so y squared over 36 minus x squared over 64 is equal to 1. And that concludes this problem. We have written the equation of the hyperbola given this focus and this vertices. Your homework assignment will be working out problems just like these, so use your guided practice as your reference as per always. And we will see you next time.